this audio, I'm going to talk about what I call child logic. Now, when we're children, and as we grow, and as our mind develops, we will learn to process our life experiences, and as we do so, we'll begin to develop certain viewpoints and certain deeply held beliefs. And these beliefs will form a kind of internal structure inside of us, like a set of rules. And these rules will colour our perception of the world, including our perception of ourselves, and they'll shape the way that we engage with our lives. As we develop and learn to make sense of our world, and make sense of everything that's going on around us in our lives, the way that we process our experiences will take place within the limits of our age and stage of development. So our perception and the conclusions that we arrive at will be relative to our age at any given moment in time. Now, the younger that we are, and therefore the more dependent we are, the more reliant we are on our grown-ups to process our experiences both for us and with us. So our circumstances, and the way in which we're parented, and our family environment will impact on the way that we absorb and process experience. And this in turn will impact on the way in which we perceive ourselves. Now, child logic is effectively the viewpoint of a child, and it's very important to recognise that many of our internal beliefs and many of our inner rules have been established on the basis of child logic. Whatever was going on for you as a child, whether you liked it or whether you hated it, you will have experienced it and established your perception of it from the viewpoint of a child. When we're children, we don't have a backdrop that allows us to compare our experiences against those of others. So whatever's going on, we will assume that this is normal and that our world is the same as everyone else's, that whatever's happening for us will be happening to everyone. So whatever our life is like, that will have been the norm for us. It's interesting that I've met many people who were abused, and they absolutely hated it, and they knew that they hated it. And yet they also assumed that this was simply how it was for everyone. They assumed that it was normal. And it was only when they had the opportunity to spend time in someone else's family that they realised that the kind of things that were going on in their home weren't happening everywhere else, and that other families were different. So children won't necessarily challenge what's going on in their world, not only because they might be frightened to speak. They won't always know that what's going on isn't acceptable or all right. They'll simply find the best ways that they possibly can to cope and manage the situation, just as it is. And they will also come to various conclusions or beliefs based on these experiences. Now, a great many things can happen in our growing up, and whilst they're not necessarily directly abusive, they're not particularly emotionally healthy either. And they carry a massive emotional impact. For example, if parents are stressed and emotionally unavailable to a child, for whatever reason, this can actually be extremely damaging and traumatic. I call this kind of situation the trauma of normality. Sometimes life happens and parents are simply unable to cope. They're not setting out to parent badly. They just don't know how to do it, or they're struggling with something that's going on for them. And sometimes they're just ill-equipped to deal with their own emotional experiences, let alone those of their children. So back to child logic. Child logic can lead us to develop very specific viewpoints and beliefs, and these viewpoints and beliefs actually stay with us and continue to influence us in our adult lives. Let me give you some examples of the kind of things that I mean. If you grew up in an environment where your grown-ups never listened to you, or they were unavailable and unresponsive to you, from a child's perspective, this might lead you to believe that you're not important, or that no one wishes to hear what you have to say. If you grew up in an environment where you live with a continual stream of criticism, you may have developed a belief that you're rubbish at everything, and that you always mess everything up, and that nothing you ever do is going to be good enough. If you grew up in an environment where your grown-ups were aggressive or violent towards you, but then told you they were doing it for your own good and that you deserved it, then it's highly likely that you'll develop a belief that says, I'm a bad person and I never get anything right. And when someone in your adult life treats you badly, you may feel deep down that it was your fault and that you deserved it. If you grew up in an environment where you were badly let down or hurt, or you lost someone very close to you, then you may have developed deeply held beliefs that people can't be trusted and anyone you ever get close to will inevitably leave. I think that we can easily see how a child might reach these conclusions. Child logic is very powerful. It's powerful because it's rooted in real experience. These firmly held viewpoints, frequently about ourselves, feel very true. And yet as adults, I think we can really see that these beliefs are not appropriate and certainly not true at all. A good way of thinking about this is to recognise that they were real experiences and therefore they were true for us, but they're not the truth. It's something that was true without the th on the end. It was true for us, but it's not the truth. It's tremendously important that in our adult lives we differentiate between the things that we have believed to be true because they were rooted in our very real experience and because we made sense of those experiences from our position as a child, as opposed to the actual truth. When we can notice and become aware of the inner rules that we're living through, we can begin to challenge our own perceptions. We can begin to separate out those rules and beliefs that were established on the basis of child logic. They may have been true for us in our past, but they're not the truth. We need to make adjustments, and we need to develop an adult internal rulebook and adult belief systems. Systems that are far more appropriate and far more relevant to the life that we're living right now and to the life that we wish to live in the future. Thank you for listening and take care. This is copyrighted material 2014, Jenny Burgess, The A to Z of Emotional Health. All rights reserved.